My name is Sami, and I ran a workshop yesterday, which was about 2 hours. So now I'm trying to sort of like condense that stuff into 10 minutes. So bear with me if I go fast. Basically, my background is in doing stuff for the web since 95, 97 about. I've been freelancing. I used to work for Nokia Design for a couple of years, where I met a lot of brilliant people. And then I've been running our own consultancy called Nordkapp in Helsinki since 2007. But basically what we do, we do the usual design consulting stuff, interaction design, business strategy, and that kind of stuff. But we are more and more fiddling with product development. So meaning combining technologies, ideas, corporations, people, that kind of stuff. And it's very interesting and kind of like makes you think things differently. And we've been fiddling with things like information design, urban screens as well. We did a design fiction for the Helsinki Design Capital Year 3 years ago called Urban Flow Helsinki. And then last summer we did a prototype of that thing actually on the Helsinki streets. And apart from that, kind of like we've been trying to figure out the IoT space for quite some time now. So where's the business value? Where's the money? How does it actually work apart from like doing like one-offs here and there and things with apps? And obviously we've been trying to figure out the internet fridge as well. So these are sort of like really, really lo-fi kind of prototype stickers. We've been just we're going to do a bigger run of this later on, but now we're just kind of trying to figure out, use this as a probe to see how people react on a talking fridge, for example. So the theme of yesterday was discreteness. So designing discrete things. And if you look at the dictionary definition, we're talking about something that's intentionally unobtrusive. So this kind of like syncs perfectly with Alan and Louisa before me, because this is kind of like the holy grail of digital service design, the butler, the steward. So I disagree a bit with the smart puppy thing. Puppies are usually very excited, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples later on why that's not really a good thing. But butlers, stewards, on the other hand, they're really difficult. They're really, really difficult to design, and that's kind of like, that was the theme of yesterday. Basically, this riff from Alessandro in the morning, we're basically here. So we are the innovators, early adopters, and there's quite some time until even the early majority gets on the IoT. But that leads to things like this. So there's a lot of things that are actually talking back to us already, have been for a while. Software, cars, anything connected. And a large majority of these, to me, they seem that they've been kind of like, they happened as a side product. So this is a dashboard of I think a Volkswagen rental car. There's nothing wrong with the car. It's parked. I'm just about to take the key off the lock. It's yelling me to check the safe manual, owner's manual, the 2 exclamation marks, which kind of like, I don't know, could be done better. And then the next step of this is kind of like what we are doing right now. We're opening screens everywhere. So Apple probably wants to put an iPad everywhere. With the iBeacons, all of the iOS devices will become iBeacons. So there's going to be tablets, LCD screens with backlights everywhere. We had an actually good discussion about Tesla yesterday as well. So Tesla's kind of like one of the first kind of touchscreen car UIs, which are actually designed pretty well. But it's still a big-ass touchscreen in your car. So it's a really nice-looking product, but I think this can't be the final step on designing car UIs. But then there's a lot of stuff like technology looking for purpose, designed by white male middle-aged people for white middle-aged people. So Google Glass is not that far. The guy on the right is Steve Mann, the pioneer of wearable technology, and he's got a kind of like Google Glass like rig fixed in his skull. has had for a while now. And it's kind of like, it's obvious to see where Google Glass came from. And there's long way to go still. It's kind of like because we can technology. And then this is the state of the IoT right now, especially wearables. Most people end up just losing their wearable things because they forget to charge them. This is my Pebble Steel, which I loved for the first 5 weeks. Then I forgot the cable at home, and yeah. So basically, what's going on here is like we are moving from mobile first to behavior first. So we have to, if we're going to do connected things, we have to understand how people behave, and we also have to design the behavior of the things properly. So things like context, simplicity matter. Especially, I mean, think what you think about Google Glass, but there's something quite magical about information hovering on your view here, and being able to control that by voice. There's something there, even though the actual hardware is not quite there yet, but it changes the game quite interestingly. And then things get simplified, so language matters. So voice recognition is getting like fairly all right, but it's still fairly analog, kind of like we recognize the words, and then there's like huge kind of response libraries written manually. So we need the software behind this. And it's not like we've been here before. So Clippy was kind of like early adopter of these things. And context matters because like this is what I mean by the smart puppy thing. So this is an example of a Nike Fuel Band. I tried it out for a few months when it came out, and this is the first Facebook update ever that I connected on Facebook, posted online, and it's very excited. The best day ever. It's my first day using that. So. Are
you trying to say something?
No. Why? So basically, I mean, this is where we get it wrong for the most part. So everyone, especially big corporations, they design connected things based on their history, right? So if they've done wearable sports instruments, they'll approach software services based on their experience. So, but we should do things humans first, human factors, human behavior first, then services, then the software, then the hardware. And there are a couple of examples which I think get the discreteness right pretty well. So for the most part, these are small startups, individual things. Corporations are just kind of learning this stuff. They're not there yet. Misfit Shine is a nice example of kind of very discrete wearable, which kind of, it has an app, yes, it's a silo, but it's done fairly well. Then there's Moves, the iPhone Android app, which was just recently acquired by Facebook. It's brilliant on recognizing what you actually do. Kind of like it tracks you in the background, recognizes where you go, what you do. It can tell difference between like cycling, walking, taking a public transport, etc., etc. There's something really nice about kind of Butler-like where it works in the background. Idle, the payment system, which I really like the card terminal. It's kind of really almost like a blank object, really kind of like discrete. And then there's things coming like the Ether Cone, the intelligent speaker, kind of like it's loaded with sensors, has a voice UI. It knows kind of like where it is, who's playing what, etc., etc. It's learning. So that's something really interesting. More conceptual things like the Twitter cuckoo clock done by Berg. Kind of like this is almost like the what Massimo Banzi talked about, hardware as a poetry almost. So kind of like experimental things, which kind of like they are trying to find their purpose, but they are not in your face. And obviously, I realized just before the talk that I end up plugging like a lot of people in the audience. So, Cornelia Allison, I'm probably one of the only males that like Goodnight Lamp. It's a beautiful, discrete thing. And then, I mean, Android Wear, Google, they get something right on the voice control. How they kind of like try to get this into the everyday. So there's something really, really interesting here. Here's a part of the video where she opens up the garage door. Okay, Google, open up the garage door. Simple as that. That's really kind of like in your life. It's not on the way. So that was kind of like the premise of yesterday. We had about 25, 30 people sketching, reframing, a couple of kind of like familiar everyday experiences. So the question we asked was basically like, how could we make this thing more discreet? So there was like a vending machine, transactions, public screens, car UIs, wearables, etc., etc. And I like frameworks. I like reframing things through different frameworks. So here's what we use, kind of like first, kind of a very simple privacy framework which we've been using at work in a couple of projects regarding wearables, for example. So they're private, personal, shared, common, or public, for example. Then what do? Is there haptics involved, voice UI, etc., etc. And when do they exist? Are they doable now, next year, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, etc., etc. So these kind of things are really interesting, kind of like to help people avoid the blank paper syndrome. So start from anywhere by using these. And we got actually 5 groups got into pretty interesting stuff in 60 minutes. So from a merchant thing, we got into self-cleaning nanotech clothing, which they claim that it's doable in 3 years. From car UI, one group started sketching things like, what is the self-driving car experience? What do you do when you don't have to drive? Public screens, do we need them at all? Smartphone sensor networks could replace a lot of that stuff. Vending machines to 3D printing closets in your home or in public. Then there was interesting approach to public transport ticketing, which is based on like not doing anything but shaming the ones that don't pay their ticket. And those like, yeah, it was purely kind of like, I'm still trying to figure this stuff out myself. So the workshop was kind of like thinking out loud, kind of like trying to reframe, trying to kind of like pick other people's brain a bit as well. Where do we go with these things? And it's interesting stuff. I'm going to put the slides and stuff online some stage, so that's going to be on my Twitter. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you very much.